Hey everybody, welcome to Game Boys. It's me, Digibro, joined by
A
Hypocrite.
hypocrite! Sorry, I thought you were going to say
Yes.
my name.
Oh man, this is the first one we're recording after this show has actually started airing.
Oh, that's
Um,
true.
yeah, this
I only saw the first few comments. I don't know what people's general reception of it has been.
the general reception was a lot of animosity towards me for having my like dates and stuff wrong and like just generally being incorrect about the Wii. So
Oh,
I
well, this
caught
is
I
this
caught a
is
lot
not
of
that
flack.
sort of show. We're not technical guys.
No.
We're just talking about what we remember.
Well, it reminded me of why I usually shy away from video game content, which is that gamers are the most particular people in the fucking world, and they will hit you very hard about anything they disagree with you about, to an extent that I've never seen in like another fan base. Like it's just gamers who are like that, and I don't know why. But you know, the point of this show is for me and you to have fun and get nostalgic. I really hope that what
Yeah,
people take away from the show is the nostalgia of like reminiscing on these consoles that they grew up with, you know.
indeed. And
Which is going to be
today
big this episode.
we've got the GameCube, which is your, I think, biggest nostalgia boy.
I would say so. The Nintendo GameCube is probably the console I spent the most time with, and that like was there for my most formative years. You know, it was because for my family, my first game console was an N64. I later had a Game Boy Color because of Pokemon. And because of these things, I became a huge Nintendo fanboy. I had Nintendo Power magazine, and of course, Nintendo Power was hyping up the GameCube for fucking, you know, the entire year leading up to its release. So I knew everything about the games that were going to come out for it. I knew everything about the console, and I was super fucking hype. And I also became a hardcore anti-Sony and Microsoft guy because I was just the right age to be a console war boy, you know, one of those fanboys who has to defend their console because there's competition and I don't know, somehow your brand loyalty leads you to deciding that the other two are worthless just because the one you like is good, which doesn't make any fucking sense. And later
That's
I would eventually end up with the other consoles anyways.
It's interesting because I don't remember being like a console war person. Like I didn't care particularly, but I knew that I had the PS2, so why would I get the Xbox and GameCube? Specifically, I remember going to a friend's house. He had the Xbox, the PS2, the N64, the PS1, the GameCube, and a TV in his room. So I hated him, but it was great. But he had like the Xbox version of Harry Potter, Chamber of Secrets, which I had on PlayStation 2, and he was playing it, and it looked exactly the same. So my first thought of the Xbox was, well, it's the same thing. Why would I buy that? Why, you know, there's no reason that all the consoles are the same. And I had seen in magazines that Harry Potter has been advertised as being on the GameCube as well. So I thought, okay, so the GameCube, Xbox, and PlayStation, they're all exactly the same. It's just, you know, pick whatever one you feel like. So I never really had like any animosity towards people. I also don't think I knew or talked about with people about game consoles that much at school. But yeah, it was just sort of like, well, I mean, I have Sony, that's the one for now.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was that I was a GameCube boy, and I was big into all the exclusive Nintendo titles. Like, you know, Nintendo has tons of first-party IPs that they used to put out games for all the time. And, yeah, in the GameCube era, like, the launch titles for the GameCube were Pikmin and Super Smash Bros. Melee. You know, if, like... So those are both games that you're not going to get on any other console, and like those are the kind of games I was always excited about. And generally, my fanboyism for the GameCube kind of sprang out of when kids at school would talk about video games. It was always Grand Theft Auto, like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City. Like kids were always talking about those games, and I had no interest in those because I saw them as like I didn't understand the appeal of like being a criminal in a game. I was like, why would I want that, you know? Or the realistic graphics and all that shit just didn't appeal to me at all. So like these kids would always tell, like I would say, oh, I don't have a PS2, I have a GameCube because Grand Theft Auto wasn't on the GameCube, you know? And they would be like, "Oh, GameCube, that's for kids." You know, which, by the way, we are all kids at
Yeah.
this time, but, you know, kids don't want to be seen as kids. So they're like, yeah, GameCube's for kids. It's for little kids. And I was like fuming angry about this, you know, that like people were disrespecting it wasn't enough that I have a different console, but you have to insult me for having it, you know, and that made me in turn like, okay, well, fuck these people, you know. So yeah, I was very hardcore defender of the GameCube, and from 2001 when it came out until 2003, it was the only you know, console I had from that generation. Eventually got a PS2. I wouldn't say it was till 2004 that I started really playing the PS2 and got into it, and then later got the Xbox, and so like you know, so I ended up eventually playing all of them. But the GameCube was there for me and both of my little brothers for the years that we probably most all cared about video games. You know, the era where like video games were really important to me and the thing I spent a lot of my time doing, and playing them with my brothers was like most of what we did, you know. So I've played a huge chunk of GameCube games, but I'm interested in hearing if you ever eventually got one or whatever.
Well, yeah, the console, like your GameCube equivalent would be the PS2 for me and my brothers. But yeah, I was introduced to the GameCube at that same old kids club I mentioned a couple times, where they had Mario Party and Pikmin. They must have had Pikmin because I wanted Pikmin so bad, and I had at the time a Game Boy Advance, so I knew what Nintendo was and that they had Pokemon and stuff. So I don't know when I got the GameCube, but it was pretty late. Like, it must have been after the PlayStation 3 came out. It was like,
wow.
Yeah, I don't actually remember. No, this is why I got a GameCube. The Wii had already been out for a while, I think, but I wanted to play my Game Boy Advance games on my TV, because I had a bunch of those,
yeah.
and you could only do it through the GameCube. So I got a GameCube, and I got Pikmin finally. I don't know why I wasn't pushing for that more, because the time I played it at the kids club was like, I loved it so much. Pikmin is my favorite game on the GameCube, probably. But I've only when I got the GameCube and I played Game Boy on my TV, wasn't actually that great, and it was kind of hard to see because the pixels were too big, and I didn't use it that much. But with that, I got, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 GameCube games, and that's the entire library I've ever played.
Wow. So I think I'm going to be dominating the conversation this episode then.
Yeah.
Funny that you say that about Pikmin, because when the GameCube came out again, that was one of the launch titles, and that was the one I was super hype about, because, you know, they would show all this stuff in Nintendo Power, like showing off the graphical capabilities of the GameCube, and which were quite high. The GameCube it was capable of better graphics than the PS2 was, and I think maybe even the Xbox, or it was like on par with the Xbox. Both of them were capable of like really gorgeous games, which was kind of ironic because in the future Sony would become we have the graphics console, you know, where the PS2 had been lacking in that regard. But PS2 also came way earlier.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing, or I've seen just generally things like Sonic Adventure 2 or whatever, or any games that were on the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube. The GameCube version is generally considered the better one because of that.
Yeah, pretty much. And but when they were launching it, they had all these screen caps of Pikmin, and it just looked unbelievably beautiful. Like, I'd never seen a game that looked anywhere near this good before, and that was why I wanted it so much. And then also Super Smash Bros. I distinctly remember an advertisement in Nintendo Power for Smash, or not an advertisement, but an article, but, you know, no difference, which shows Mario, and it was showing off the fact that you could see the stitching on his overalls. That, like, that was the level of detail we were at, was that you could have textures on the 3D models, you know, because N64, it was just polygons. So, like, that was mind-blowing levels of graphics to me at the time, which, of course, now is completely passé, and you'd expect nothing less.
I'm looking at the cover box, the cover art, and you can see prominently Mario in the front with his stitched overalls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very big deal, because his first time... Iconic character who's been around for decades at this point. And this is the first time you can see the stitching on his overalls, you know.
And you can see Bowser's scales as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Bowser looks beautiful in that game. So yeah, those were the launch titles. And the funny thing is, I was more excited about Pikmin. Me and Victor were both excited about Super Smash Bros. Melee, of course, because we had played Super Smash Bros. For the N64. And so I got Pikmin, he got Smash, and Pikmin was too hard and confusing for me. I would have been 10 at the time that it came out, and I think I even had a strategy guide, but, like, the game is all time-based, and, like, my strategy guide would tell you, like, exactly where to go and what to do, but actually executing it, like, in the time allotted was really difficult, especially because the guide is trying to optimize. You know, it's like, here's how you do it and have time to spare. And I always felt like if I couldn't do it to the optimal level, then I was going to fall behind and fail. So, like, I never, like, played super far in Pikmin because I would get so fucking paranoid just about, like, not doing things fast enough that I thought I was, like, oh, I've basically lost already. Like, I've lost the whole game because I didn't do it fast enough, you know?
Yeah.
It's a very nerve-wracking game.
I felt that way the first time I played it. I have no idea when. I don't know how old I was. I was definitely not 10 years old, so I can imagine for a little kid, especially with like a guide and you know, feeling like you're not doing it right. Yeah, that could be impossible. But I played it all the way through like 3 years ago, I think now, and it's actually a lot easier than you would imagine. Like on the fourth level, I think it's the fourth level, with all the water and the big balloon guys. That level, I actually managed to complete everything in that level in one day, and I wasn't really that good. It was just like, whoa, I've saved so much time. I'm so good at this game, and it's really just like the don't panic. You can do it tomorrow. Like if you try and do everything in one day, you're just gonna die and lose things and fuck up. But it's probably. I don't know how Majora's Mask is, but I assume it's the same sort of thing, where if you actually play it and don't panic, you can get through all the timing stuff not really with any problem.
I mean, I have a tendency to panic, and also I think as a kid, that game just felt huge. Like, the levels felt really impossibly big to me, because, like, I don't think I ever just stopped and explored the whole place and got a sense of it. I was trying to do things in order, you know, like, by way of how the guide is. So I never had a moment of just, like, clean sweeping the area and knowing everything. So I think maybe that would help if I had done that, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely, like, it's difficult for kids. I would say if you try to Let's Play it now, Let's Playing is different from right. You know, from just playing it. But, like, if you play it today, it would not be that bad, I don't think.
I actually do play video games without Let's Playing them now. I've gotten to that point. I've returned to my gaming roots, which is why I'm excited to do this podcast in the first place. But yeah, so then there was Super Smash Bros. Melee, which we played probably hundreds of hours of. I mean, that was the most fun fucking game ever. Partly because it's a big multiplayer game, you know. In my household, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was true for you as well, because we both have two younger brothers. Multiplayer is kind of crucial, because if one of you's playing, the other ones are going to be jealous. Yep. That's how it was in my house. If I'm playing a video game, Victor's mad that he's not playing a video game, you know? And
it's always the case.
Once Shade came along, that became a big thing that would happen in our house, especially in the GameCube era, was that Victor would start up a game, and then Shade, who had at that point not wanted to play a video game, but now that he sees that Victor he wants to, Shade will then immediately throw a shit fit. And my dad will get involved, and my dad will say, let Shade play, because he doesn't want to have to listen to him
God.
cry. And
this has happened to me so many times.
And mind you, Shade is 6 years younger than me, 4 years younger than Victor. So, little kid, you know, compared to us. Yeah, Shade cries. My dad says, let Shade play. And Victor's like, I literally just turned the game on. But it's like, you know, Victor's not going to throw a shit fit. Shade is. So, Shade gets to play. Fucking, it's terrorism. That is literally terrorism. I eventually got to a point where I would just watch them play. Like, that was fun for me, was just, like, reading them strategy guides and shit. Because I became a big computer guy, and I would always read on game FAQs and shit. So, you know, that's sort of why I stopped being as much of a gamer as I had been. But, yeah, so Melee, of course, you can have as many players as you want. Well, up to 4, but, you know. So me and Victor and our friends would all play, and we played the living shit out of Smash Melee. And we had a strategy guide for that too, so we were able to get all of the secret characters like immediately, you know, because we knew how to get them all and shit. So
I have also got Smash Melee. Well, I said I had. I don't think I'd ever gotten Fox. I don't know. I didn't know how to figure it, like to have him appear.
Fox. You mean Falco?
Not Fox. Wolf, whoever he is.
Wolf.
The other guy.
Falco. Are there 3? No, you're thinking of Brawl. Wilson
am I?
Brawl. Yeah.
Okay.
Only Fox
I always
Falco
felt like
are
there
in
was a
Melee.
character missing from this. But yeah, I don't know whether I played Melee that much because the Wii. I don't know whether we had the Wii, but it was out. No, we probably had the Wii. It's very strange because I got the GameCube so late that none of us really played it. I played most of these games on the Wii. And Brawl was out, so we probably played Brawl more than Melee. So I have some memories of this. I have more memories of the N64 version, actually. Because that was at the Kids Club before the GameCube, and I used to spam Samus's screw attack move over and over again, because it was the best. Ugh.
I'm looking at, I'm having my mind blown right now. Because I was about to start going on to a rant about how people always say of, like, Splatoon, that like, when Splatoon came out, everyone was like, oh my god, Nintendo's actually making a new IP. They haven't done that since Pikmin. And I'm looking at the GameCube library, and Animal Crossing is right there. This really amazing IP that came out in this, you know, in the time since Pikmin. But apparently, Animal Crossing was originally an N64 title from Japan, and it was just enhanced onto the GameCube, and then it was actually released worldwide after that point. I did not know that at all until just now on Wikipedia. But did you ever play Animal Crossing?
Never. I had seen it, and I was like, well, you do all these things. Why, though? And people never really had they just say, it's just fun to do all these things.
Yeah.
And I didn't get it.
If I had to describe what is, like, the goal in the game, it's to build your house. Because, like, you start off with a tiny little house, and you start working for, basically, you get the house for free, but you're, you know, in debt.
I know how it works.
And so
I know how it works now.
Yeah, as you keep paying off more, you build your house bigger. It's a neat game, that we probably spent a lot of time playing, but, like, yeah, because of the fact that there's, eventually you get the sense of, okay, I'm just doing the same shit every day, then you kind of lose interest. But what was mind-fucking blowing to me about this game at the time is that it has so much shit in it. Like, there's all these, for instance, every holiday, like, the whole town will be different for that holiday. And this is stuff you can't just blow through it. You can't just, like, make all this stuff happen. You have to play this game every day and play at certain times to see certain things. Every, like, Saturday night at 10 o'clock, there's a character named KK Slider, this little dog guy who plays a guitar, who shows up at the top of the town and plays a concert. And, like, you have to be playing on Saturday at 10 to see him, and he's got, like, 50 different songs he can play. So, like, you won't get the exact same concert twice for a while, you know? And, like, just stuff like that, the more I would learn about it, the more it would fucking blow my mind. Like, the number of, like, date-specific stuff, the number of, like, gyrodes in the game and stuff, like, random collectibles that you might never see, or that, like, take insane amounts of money to eventually get.
You know, what's interesting about all that is that like they made more games. Like, what if you wanted to keep up with the original Animal Crossing game, and then the next game came out, and you're like, well, I want to keep up with that one as well. Like, I wonder if there's a person out there that is just like got like 8 like TVs constantly playing Animal Crossing every day on all of them.
Have you ever read the incredibly depressing Animal Crossing like mom cancer story? That's like
I think I have.
Yeah, where like the mom kept playing the game for like years after the kids had stopped playing with them, and then she dies and they load up her save and she sent them all this mail and she's got all these like letters for them and they were just like crushed and like crying and shit. It's a great story. Look up Animal Crossing Cancer if you want a good cry today. Though I just spoiled it for you, but yeah, this game I definitely played a lot of. It was never one that I would consider a favorite, but the funny thing about Animal Crossing is I was more interested in the game, like I was more interested in playing it when I was a little bit older, and by then there's the 3DS versions and the Wii version, but those games have the rolling pin world. Do you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, the horizon sort of comes up from
and I
the thing.
hate that. It just didn't work for me. Like, I really liked the grid-based top-down look of the first game, and I don't like the rolling pin look at all. And so, like, that's why I've never played one since the first game, just because I really hate the way they look.
For me, I always had The Sims, so I didn't really care too much for like house building and stuff. But it's really interesting, the idea that they had all that built into the game because the internet wasn't available to, download patches for Halloween updates and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just a huge amount of stuff. And like when you really think about, like, because for me as a kid, I just didn't understand how it was possible that they had so much stuff in there. And now I realize it's not that difficult to just like create a slightly different asset and set it to come out on this day. Like, thinking about it in programming terms, it wouldn't be that difficult to do. It's just the thoughtfulness of going that far with it.
Imagine if they had like a 10-year anniversary thing that only players who play every day, just one day, 10 years after the game was launched, the characters will say something different, and you're like, there's no way of knowing.
If there's stuff in there that no one has ever seen or will ever see, because why not? Why not toss it in just in case? It could be something small that takes like 1 minute to program into the game. God, there's so many tabs I have open that my computer's like threatening to crash.
Super Mario
games.
Sunshine, that
big
one, that's a big one. I think. I'm trying to think whether that is my first Mario. Like, I never had an N64. I had seen people play Mario 64, but Mario Sunshine was my first Mario, and I don't think I beat it. No, I must have beat it. I beat it at some point, but like not when when we first had it. And that's a good one. I like that.
We had Mario Sunshine, and we never got very far into it because the controls are fucking weird. Like,
they are fucking weird.
Just the whole concept of simultaneously trying to control Mario and the weird flood pack, and that like in the first level, in fact in a lot of the game, in the early part, like, if you fall off of a structure, you don't just like fall to your death and then respawn, you fall back into the level and you make your way back up again. And like, I just don't think we ever got better at the game enough. Like, the idea is go try again and you'll know how to do it better this time. But if you go try again and you don't know how to do it better and you keep failing at the same moment, then you keep spending 3 minutes going back to where you fell and then falling again, And that was kind of how I remember the experience of Mario Sunshine. Just like basically having no fucking idea what we were doing and eventually giving up.
For me, it was, I think the water nozzle was... It was kind of too useful, because then you weren't sure exactly how you're supposed to get to certain platforms. You're like, well, I could try and jump and do the thing, but I don't actually know if that's what I'm supposed to do. And then you fail, and you're like, yeah. But the thing I remember the most was the special stages where it is more like, you know, a Mario 64, where it's just a bunch of platforms, and if you fall, you lose, and you have to go back. Specifically the fucking Sandbird thing, which I could never do. I could never figure out how to do it. I hate this game. It sucks.
Oh my god, I'm clicking through the tabs and I just happen to click on a game that is the biggest deal possible for me that you probably never played. It's a game called Tales of Symphonia.
I've heard of that, but I don't know what it is.
It was an RPG. It's a JRPG that came out in 2003. I probably played it in 2004. And it was originally GameCube exclusive. It's a huge, a full-scale JRPG game with a side-scrolling action combat. So you get into, like, random encounters, but you play them like an action game. And it had cel-shaded graphics that looked really good at the time. It has not aged well, but... the thing is, this was my favorite game for a while at the time when I was like 14, where like something being my favorite means it meant the entire world to me. And I'd beaten this game in probably like 2 weeks, but like it's not that I went back and played it. I did actually play halfway through it again, which is a shock for me because I had never like replayed games I'd beaten. But the more important part is that I got really involved in the forums for this game on Game FAQs. And that led to all kinds of stuff. I wrote a ton of fan fiction for Tales of Symphonia. I wrote erotic fan fiction for Tales of Symphonia. And I hung out in fan groups and stuff like that. So, like, I was just really obsessed with this game, which, I don't know, it's just a basic-ass JRPG. Like, I would say that the Tales of series... because one of these games comes out like every single year. And I feel like Tales of is always made for whoever happens to be 14 that year. Like, you can't get into it if you're older than that, unless you're like still playing them because you've developed a relationship with the series. But I've never seen someone like 23 years old play a Tales of game for the first time and like, oh my god, I really love these. It's like... the way the stories are written, they're very juvenile and like, but they're edgy and kind of like, it's like baby's first woke experience kind of thing. Like the story of Tales of Symphonia is essentially like, oh, what if religion secretly is not good kind of thing, like, or like racism, that's a thing. Like there's like these really edgy ideas in there, but it's presented in a very, juvenile way. But it's very anime. And this was at a time when I was way into anime, and that's why I got way into JRPGs, because JRPGs is basically anime in video game form. And I remember that my brother Victor...
I'm looking at like a PC stream of a video. There's a guy who looks like Silver the Hedgehog.
Is it a guy who's like got his arms shackled?
No, he's just wearing a blue thing and he's got Silver the Hedgehog hair. It's very anime. I see what you mean now.
Oh, okay, I know who you're talking about. You're talking about Genus. He uses like a toy to fight with. He's a child genius kind of character. Hence the name Genius. Anyway, this game, like I was way into it, and I remember that Victor wasn't that into it, but then years later he would play Tales of Vesperia when he was like 15 or 16, and he thought that game was super cool. Which that game, once again, that one's got even an older protagonist, so it's I could see a little older getting into it, but like all of them are like, there's a point in your teens where you're perfect for the Tales of series, and then it goes away. That's why they have to put one out every year. So for the new teenagers,
Is it a series, Tales of?
Yeah, Tales of. It's always Tales of something Ia. So the original was Tales of Fantasia for the Super Nintendo. Tales of... well, actually, not always Ia, because there was Tales of Destiny on the PS1, and Tales of Destiny 2. Tales of Symphonia. There was a sequel to Tales of Symphonia. Tales of the Abyss. Tales of... there's a lot. Tales of Berseria is the latest one, if you happen to see that in the store. I'm
looking at it. It looks kind of like every MMO that wasn't like a Western... every Japanese MMO or just anime-looking MMO was based off of this and things like it.
could potentially see. I kind of know what you're talking about, like Maple Story.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm trying to think of the ones I played. It's just got that sort of look to it. I do have it on my list of JRPGs to play.
Oh, Symphonia?
At some point.
Yeah. I would be... I recently... Well, not that recently, 4 years ago, but I bought a... Because they remade Symphonia 1 and 2. Like, there was an HD remake for the PS3. And I bought that basically because... you know the YouTuber Satchbag's Goods?
I do.
Yeah, Satchbag had done this video on Chrono Cross and his undying love of Chrono Cross and how it had meant all this stuff to him over the years. And I thought, what if it turns out that I would still love Tales of Symphonia today? So I went out and bought the HD remake and played like 3 or 4 hours of it, and I was like, yeah, that's not not gonna be the case. This game's pretty fucking stupid. Again, it's just very basic. It would be... It's the kind of thing that will seem incredibly unoriginal to you if you've consumed any stories at all. But moving on from there, did you ever play Amazing Island? I think that was on multiple consoles.
I didn't, but I saw the Game Grumps play it for like 3 episodes.
That's the one where you like make a weird monster and then like do shit. I never played it either, but I know Shade was way into Amazing Island because Victor and Shade were always big into customizing stuff, like building their own characters, and I was never into that. Another JRPG, Botton Kaitos, Eternal Wings in the Lost Ocean. This was a more obscure one that was graphically very beautiful, but it had a card battle system that was really fucking bizarre, and like it was kind of like a deck building card battle system, but for like normal JRPG style battles. I don't know how else to describe it, but I only played a little bit of it, and I watched Victor play like half. I mostly remember watching him play it and listening to Demon Days by Gorillaz a whole lot, which I talked about in my old ass album cast on that. You got another one you want to talk about? I don't want... Like, I'm scared to let you go through all 6 of yours, and then I've got, like, literally 30 tabs open.
I'm holding on to them. Well...
Right, well,
I can talk about the one that's, like, kind of close to Tales of Symphonia, which is Fire Emblem Path of Radiance.
Ah, yes.
Which we touched on in the GBA video. It was a weird one, because I liked Fire Emblem, and I saw this in a magazine... I don't think we even have Nintendo Power over in the UK. Maybe we do. But it was just a thing, and it was just like showing... It's in 3D now, and I'm like, whoa, I like things that are now in 3D. So I got it, and I was immediately upset because the animations were terrible. Yeah. Not terrible, but they were like... They didn't capture the... Yeah, I mean,
there's no... Yeah. Because the impact... The animations on the GBA games are incredible. Like, a character goes over and you have this, like, ka-chunk moment when they stab them. And they interact with each other. You see a sprite hit another sprite. On the fucking GameCube game, you just see them, like, thrust forward, and then it cuts to the other guy getting hit. There's no interaction between the models. It's super fucking jank.
I think there is a bit of... really what it is that they walk up to them. Like, before it was like they're close to each other on the GBA, and if you're like a ninja or a sword master, you jump and you slash, or there's a lot of jumping and slashing and fast, cool anime movements and teleport behind you, literally. There's a critical hit move where they literally teleport behind you and stab you, and it's great. And in this, it's like every single unit, no matter how cool they're supposed to be, just... like walks, or, you know, if they're on a horse, they ride up to the guy, and then they hit them as if they don't have any special skills whatsoever. As if they're actually taking turns hitting each other, and it's not really a fight. It's stupid. It took all of the magic out of, like even the magic effects weren't that good. Like, it sucked. They tried to mask it a bit by having every sword swing have a little bit of a whoosh effect, but it's terrible. It doesn't good.
And it was slow as shit too. So it took way too long for the battles to unfold. Yeah. And
but there was other
like 5 chapters in.
There was other things about it that were weird as well. Like, you could you could steal, like I think the thief character could just steal any item from any character. It used to be you can't steal weapons because they're just holding the weapons, but you can in this game, I think. And it was weird that I learned that really late, and I'm like, wait, I could have been this game's easy if I can do that to the boss. It's like, I don't get it. And then there's things like they're introducing weird animal type people, which is like a staple of Fire Emblem, but for some reason I only like it in Fire Emblem 8, and everything else is just like you have many different races of weird animal-human hybrids that I don't care about, and you only get one of them. And if you don't like the character, then fuck you, you don't like the class, I guess. I don't know. The game, aside from the way it looks, is actually kind of boring, and I don't like it. And Ike is boring, and it sucks. I don't know why. Yeah, I'm trying to think why I wanted the GameCube Game Boy player thing to have Fire Emblem up on the screen. I think it may have been because I didn't like Path of Radiance, but that wouldn't have made sense because I couldn't have played it.
Yeah. I definitely had the Game Boy Advance player for the GameCube. I don't think I ended up using it that much either, just because, like, you know, I would usually play Game Boy Advance like on the couch, and it's like if I'm in front of the not the couch that we're playing video games on. We usually played games on the floor, but like on like the living room couch, you know. I think most of the time that we would use it, it's like, well, if I'm gonna sit at the console, I'd rather play a fucking console game, you know. Though nowadays I would love to play it on a TV because I hate playing on handhelds. So, are you familiar with Donkey Konga or Donkey Kong Jungle Beat?
I know of Donkey Konga because there was a kid at school who wore a Donkey Konga backpack around all the time, and people made fun of him, and he didn't have any friends, so I wasn't sure about the game.
I didn't even know something like that existed. Well, it's a game that you play with a pair of bongos. They released this big-ass peripheral of a pair of Donkey Kong barrel bongos, and you play the bongos. And Donkey Konga's a rhythm game. They made 3 of those. I never played that. But Donkey Kong Jungle Beat is a platforming game that you play with bongos. And it was really fascinating. Like, it's an interesting game because you know, you're playing just basically any platformer game except with bongos, and everything in the game is designed around sort of flow. I guess it's similar to I would compare it mostly to Dust Force. Did you ever play Dust Force?
I know about it,
Steam? Yeah. It's very similar to that in that it's all about like controlling this like momentum and sense of flow because it's built to be played with a pair of fucking bongos, and like a lot of the movement controls are meant to sound like satisfying when you're hitting the bongos. Like, you know, you hit them right and left, right and left, right and left to go faster and stuff like that. It's a fascinating game, and I would love to let's play it, except that it's also a very loud game because you're hitting fucking bongos the whole time, which meant it was a nightmare if your little brother is playing it or anybody's playing it and your parents are home. You know, like, it's loud as shit, so it was really obnoxious, and it's also pretty hard. Like, it, you know, it's a Donkey Kong game, so it ramps up in difficulty relatively quick. Apparently, you can play it with a GameCube controller. I don't think I knew that or had ever considered it. But like, yeah, I mostly knew it as the bongos game, and I've always wanted to give it another shot because it's just so fascinating. And they had a number of like weird peripheral controller gimmicks on the GameCube. Another one that I remember that probably nobody else does is a game called Odama. And Odama is a game that came with a microphone, and the idea is you control like a giant wrecking ball that is used. It is considered a tactical war game with pinball gameplay. So you're basically like on screen is like a bunch of Japanese armies, like classic samurai armies, and you control a giant pinball that you have to use to destroy the armies, but you control the pinball with a microphone where you like tell your soldiers, like you give them commands and tell them to like move out of the way and stuff like that, or to attack the enemy army. and then you like blow on it, I think, to make the pinball move. It's fucking insane. And I wanted this game so badly, but I could never fucking find it with the microphone. Like, because you needed the microphone, but like most places I could find it only had it used, and they wouldn't have the microphone included. So, which means it's fucking unplayable. And I think eventually Shade ended up buying it, and I never actually played it because by that point I didn't care anymore. But yeah, fucking weird game, and that just happened a lot.
Sounds like well, actually, no. I think they had Guitar Hero on PlayStation 2 at the time, didn't they?
Yes.
I'm trying to think whether Nintendo was ahead on the curve on having weird peripheral instruments.
Guitar Hero was pretty late into the PS2, though. Like, I want to say that started coming out in 2005 or something like that. Maybe earlier. It had to be earlier because there was 3 of them on the PS2, I think. So maybe it was 2004. Maybe, yeah, I think it was like 2004, 2005, and 2006 were when the first 3 Guitar Hero games came out. So 4 years into the PS2's life. But yeah, those were not on the GameCube. Here's a weird, obscure launch title. Pac-Man World 2. There was a bunch of 3D platformer Pac-Man games that came out in this era, and they are fucking garbage.
I think I don't know whether I have it, but my brother had a Pac-Man World 3D GBA game.
Oh, Lord.
Which is like, you know, it's 3D, but like not, and
yeah,
it was awful.
Pac-Man World 2 was like, the controls were unbelievably bad, and it made the game like nearly unplayable. This is one of like what I realized going through all the GameCube games and opening up all these tabs is that not only are there tons of them that like I remember fondly and have played for years, there's also shitloads of them that we sold. Where, like, we got lots of shitty GameCube games, and what we would do is we would, like, sell, like, 20 games at once just to buy one, you know? And, like, that was definitely one that we sold at some point. There's also a lot of good ones I never got to play. I've never played the Paper Mario games. I know Thousand Year Door on the GameCube is, like, considered one of the best games on the console, but I have no thoughts on it.
Was Paper Mario a N64 game originally?
Yeah, the first one's for the N64. Then we got Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg. That's another one that I think we sold because it's a game. I guess it's most comparable to Katamari Damacy in that you roll a thing around, but you're not collecting stuff. You just roll a giant egg, and like you run into enemies with your egg and stuff, and you got to get it to a place. I don't know. It's a fucking weird game. I never understood it as a kid. I just didn't get the controls. There were the Bomberman games, Bomberman Generation and Bomberman Jetters, which I hated because I had loved the Bomberman games on the N64, and Generation just did not have the same atmosphere, and like it was slower and just wasn't as cool, and I was not a fan. You ever heard of a game called Cell Damage? This was on all the platforms. Cell Damage was a cartoon. It's a game about cars fighting. I guess it's most similar to Twisted Metal, but like the aesthetic of it is that it's all like cartoon characters, like wacky cartoon. I guess I would aesthetically compare it to like Drawn Together or something. And yeah, you play as like using crazy Acme weapons to murder each other. It's a pretty alright game that we had played a lot of just because it was multiplayer and eventually sold, but it's now got an HD remake on the PS4. And every time I see it, I'm really tempted to buy it just for nostalgia's sake. Did you ever play Custom Robo?
Nope.
Custom Robo was a game where you customize robots and fight. It's like you're in a little arena, and it's like a 3D. It's like kind of like a fighting game or a brawler, but like except that's very loose with the controls. But like you just kind of jump around and shoot at each other with your robot characters, and like it's highly customizable. Like you have tons and tons of different guns and like jump power ups and like different ways that you can attack with the robots, and it's kind of really interesting because there's a 2-player mode where it's just each of you builds a robot and you go to town. And then there's the single-player campaign, which is like a full-blown RPG storyline. Like, it's a good, like, 15-hour story that is like incredibly dialogue driven, like long ass cutscenes and shit in between relatively short battles of robots. I don't know why it's like so story driven, because like the style of game it is would not suggest that. But yeah, I remember watching Victor play through that game like 2 or 3 times. He was pretty into it.
Have you played Pokemon Colosseum?
I never actually played it because it pissed me off so much that it existed.
I played it for a bit because I think, yeah, this has synergy with Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, and I don't actually think I ever managed to get that working, because I heard that Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire's Pokedexes could only be fully completed if you bought Colosseum and played Colosseum and got the correct Pokemon that you needed and then traded it in, or maybe the other way around. You needed to have Ruby or Sapphire to complete Colosseum. So I played it for a bit. It was very strange and not actually a Pokemon game, because you're just a weird guy going around the wilderness on a bike. Which, I mean, it's kind of cool. And he starts with an Espeon, I think.
I have heard that these games are pretty good if you take them as what they are. And this is like a huge part of, for me growing up, was being frustrated at games not being what I wanted them to be. Like, because you get a new game in the series, and I'm always wanting it to just be the one I liked before. With Pokemon, it's like, you have the Game Boy Advance games, or the Game Boy and Game Boy, like all the handhelds, you know, the mainline Pokemon games, and they're these big epic RPGs, and I never understood why they didn't make them on consoles. Like, it just didn't make sense to me that there wasn't a 3D version of the same game. And so, like, when Pokemon Stadium came out on the N64, I had already been pissed about that, but at least that was a fun multiplayer game with all these mini-games and shit. Then they released Pokemon Colosseum. Sounds like it's going to be a sequel to Stadium, right? Stadium, Colosseum? But no, it's a single-player RPG, except not one where you go around and catch Pokemon.
Yeah,
it's like a story-driven RPG game.
I'm reading the back. It says, in the Ore region, which I don't think has ever come up since, a sinister organization is capturing Pokemon and misusing them. It's up to you to restore the balance, seek out the shadow Pokemon, snag them, and restore their spirit. So you're going around evilifying Pokemon and not catching anything.
Yeah.
And everybody has a really weird fashion sense. I think if I played it today, I actually might like it more than normal Pokemon, because it isn't as big an RPG.
I don't know if I would like it more than normal Pokemon, but like I definitely would be more accepting of the idea of it. Just because, like, yeah, at the time I was like, this is fucking bullshit. This is not what I want. You know, this is not the RPG I want on the GameCube. So why the fuck have you done this to me? But you know, I've heard from people who actually played it that it's not bad. Did you ever play Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem?
No, but that sounds edgy as fuck.
Well, it is. Eternal Darkness is one of the most famous and like critically acclaimed early GameCube games, because it's a psychological horror game. It's sort of in the vein of like Resident Evil or something like that, except that the plot is fucking nuts, because it's basically jumping all through history, where like you start off as like a character in like this old house who's like a historian, and then like you'll be jumping into like these historical stories, and it's all like this weird twisted narrative, heavily Lovecraftian, lots of like Lovecraft horror in there, and it's got a sanity meter where as you go more insane, the world starts like warping and you can't like control correctly and everything's like fucked up. It was infamous for the fact that there are parts where it tells you your save file has corrupted, or like shuts off your TV and stuff like that, like because your sanity's gone crazy.
Whoa, cool.
Like, yeah, so
it's
stuff
just
like
like
that.
Undertale.
Yes, similar to Undertale or Metal Gear Solid's Psycho Mantis. So yeah, it was kind of famous for stuff like that, and I eventually I played it on an emulator, and I didn't get that far because the actual gameplay is pretty like clunky, and the story takes a while to pick up. It's very confusing and bizarre. And like I just kind of was like, this is a really neat idea, but this game has not aged terribly well. And I don't know. Maybe, and I also think it probably had some kind of emulator glitch or something, so that's probably why I stopped, because that's usually why I stopped playing a game on an emulator. But yeah, just had to bring it up because it's a very famous game. Here's a game that nobody remembers and is not good, is Evolution Worlds. This was, I think, originally I think it was like a sequel to a Dreamcast game, or it was originally on the Dreamcast. And it's like a dungeon crawler RPG game that I had bought because I like RPGs, but it's really more of like, it's almost closer to it's not a roguelike, but it's like that kind of dungeon where like you just go down different layers of the same dungeon every time, and you're just getting deeper and deeper, and it's mostly about the combat and the dungeon exploring. I just fucking thought it was super lame. Like, I remember playing a good 5 or 6 hours of it and be like, this game fucking blows. I have no desire to finish this. Oh boy. Here's one
I've only got one game left that I've got, so I'm just seeing how many you've got to talk about.
Here's one you're gonna have to play soon. Kirby Air Ride.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and this is another case of they didn't make the game I wanted, so I didn't buy it, because I loved Kirby 64, I loved Kirby's Nightmare and Dreamland on the GBA. They released a racing game on the GameCube. And
yeah, it's funny. I checked that because somebody was saying like a Rainbow Curse or whatever on the Wii U was like really people didn't like it because it wasn't a main Kirby game. And I checked, and every Nintendo console has had at least one main Kirby game except the GameCube, which just had Air Ride.
Yeah, and but the thing is that while I never really got to play it, because I think I maybe like touched it once at a friend's house, and it was not really well received because it's incredibly easy and simplistic. Like, you literally just hold A, and it's like on rails for the most part. But there's also like a multiplayer mode where you're in like an open map, and over time, this is one of those that has turned out to be a buried gem that, like, people who actually did get into this game are way into it. So I really want to play it now, because I've been hearing it's one of those that has stood the test of time, and people who remember it are like, oh, this game's really amazing. And I'm like, well, now I need to know, because it's a Kirby game, and I believe you, because they're all great, And I think it's fair for Kirby to go in weird directions, because it always has. Like, Kirby has been every different type of game, as you can attest to from your Kirby Month series that will be over by the time this comes out, because this will be our first November podcast.
Oh yeah.
There was a Zatch Bell fighting game I remember playing. Zatch Bell Mamoto Battles for the GameCube. You ever watch Zatch Bell?
I think, yeah, I watched like 1 or 2 episodes when I was like browsing anime on
for some
whatever
reason
site
that
it was.
Show really feels like, to me, like something you would enjoy.
Was it the one with the babies and the weird guy with the bell? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I watched all of it, but I've heard that it's like gets really good.
Yeah, I've heard the same, and I mean, I think it's good from the start. It's just very like obnoxious, Like, it's a shonen series in the vein of like Dragon Ball, where if you watch it in Japanese, like, Zatch is fucking naked all the time, and he's just like a bratty, like, an obnoxious kid, and like that's kind of the point. It was of course censored to fuck in the American one. Anyway, there was a shitty fighting game, and played it because Shade bought it. Twilight Princess was on the GameCube, but it was also on the Wii, and I don't think many people have played the GameCube version. Like,
yeah, I had no idea it was on the GameCube until a few years ago.
Yeah, it was supposed to be, because the funny thing about Zelda is that up until that point, like, they had a tendency to come out like towards the end of a console's lifespan, and then it got to a point where they come out so late in a console's life that they're now on both consoles. Like, this happened with that game being on both GameCube and Wii. Skyward Sword was like right at the end of the Wii's life. And then Breath of the Wild is on the Wii U and Switch, because it was so late on that console as well. But I think Breath of the Wild probably is more played on Wii U, because not as many people were buying a Switch as were buying a Wii. The GameCube version of fucking that of Twilight Princess is like impossible to find for less than like really expensive as well. Because at one point I wanted to play that version just because I don't like using the Wii controller, and it wasn't working that well on an emulator I was using. So I tried to seek it out and didn't want to pay for it. But we did get an amazing Zelda game on the GameCube, which is The Wind Waker. Haven't you played The Wind Waker?
I've played the HD thing on the Wii U, so I have played the game, but it doesn't look the same. It looks basically the same.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. I played The Wind Waker back when it came out. Me and Victor both, I don't think either of us ever beat it on the GameCube, because the thing about The Wind Waker is it's kind of a weird game because it's sort of open world, and even though we knew like where you're supposed to go because strategy guides, there was always this sense of like I'm missing out on something by not exploring enough, you know? And but I was always afraid to go like off the beaten path and like, you know, whoa, what if over there's too hard? What if I get killed? Something like that. Also, the stealth section towards the start of the game, like the first real level you play is the fortress level. And the original GameCube version, that section's way harder than it is in the HD remake. Like, they gave the characters a little bit, the enemies too much, like, vision ability. And I remember there were, like, several times we straight up gave up on the game because we got too frustrated at that part. Because we would get lost and not know where the fuck we're supposed to go, and then get caught by guards and reset all the time. And then, like, it was just so frustrating that I would just quit the game. Because, like, it's not even really the style of gameplay that Zelda's known for. You know, why even is there a stealth section in here?
It is kind of weird. I do remember getting lost in that first level. I don't know whether I remember watching the Matthew Matos's comparison video where he mentions that the lighting in the GameCube version is very harsh and contrasty, so you know exactly where the edge is. And in the Wii U version, it's soft lighting, and you have no idea where the edge of his vision is. So I would have assumed it would be easier on the GameCube to understand whether you're going to lose or not.
That you would think, but I remember having... I mean, this could just be that I was way older when I played the HD version, but, like, that section was nigh impossible for me and Victor as kids. And it was, like, through sheer force of willpower and or luck that we got through it, and then we're able to play the game from there on, you know? But, I think we never got past the part where you have to collect all the Triforce shards. I don't think we ever did that. I later came back and beat the game on the HD version, and it's great. It's a great game.
It's really nice to just sail around and have the sun rise and stuff. That's a good game for just being in the game. Yeah.
Here's a game I remember renting for like a weekend. The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Never played the ones before or after it, but it's like a very straightforward hack and slash fighting game.
I think I have that one on PS2.
Fighting game, adventure game. Yeah, it was on all the consoles, as was Lego Star Wars, the video game.
Oh,
which
yes.
I definitely played through at least once, probably rented. Actually, I don't know if I played this on the GameCube. I might have played this on the Xbox. So fuck it. Oh, here's another launch title for the GameCube. The GameCube had an incredible launch because most consoles launch with like some shitty game, you know, and then like later they start getting good games. GameCube launched with Smash Bros. Melee, Pikmin, and Luigi's Mansion. Arguably 3 of the best games on the console.
Yeah, I haven't played Luigi's Mansion. I've always wanted to.
It's because it looks really interesting.
Yeah.
I never got very far in it as a kid because the controls were confusing, and like I just didn't quite grasp it. Like I didn't fully understand this game until when I eventually, like in the last few years, played Resident Evil 1, and now I understand what Luigi's Mansion is. Like it's basically a kid-friendly Resident Evil game, but one with like a totally different control scheme and mechanics that are really fascinating. And I'd love to play this again. Victor and his girlfriend Hope just started playing this on our Let's Play show, and like I was just watching that before we recorded this, so I was like, "Oh, Luigi's Mansion, cool." And now we're talking
about Luigi's apartment, than like a remake.
Well, there was a sequel on the 3DS, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, which it's always
where
really
Luigi
weird.
turns into a werewolf.
Yeah, it's always really weird to me when they make a sequel like 12 years later. Like, I was really wondering, like, what was the demand for a Luigi's Mansion sequel on the 3DS, you know? But yeah, interesting game. I'd love to go back and play. It was also gorgeous, because not unlike Resident Evil, which we could talk about, Resident Evil also had a remake on the GameCube, which is one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen. Have you played the Resident Evil remake before?
I haven't played the remake, but I watched the Game Grumps play it. I think I remember something very scary happening, where a guy they ran through a room, and a guy was chasing them, and you know they had a small loading screen, but then the guy was still chasing them through the rooms that they had been through. Like, I love that in a game where the loading screen is not a barrier for anyone.
Right.
It's like he can just come up and get you.
Yeah. When I saw that Game Grumps play of Resident Evil, it blew my fucking mind that the game was that beautiful. Like, because, you know, it has the pre-rendered backgrounds, and the GameCube was the first console where you could just have, like, you know, like a fucking photo as the background. Like, it's perfect. There is no room for improvement on the backgrounds in that game. Like, they look
really
perfect.
Like, do any other games from that era or afterwards have like pre-rendered backgrounds? Because like that is like the best, like the nicest resolution pre-rendered backgrounds you could probably have.
Yeah.
Definitely at the time, but like, yeah, like why don't other games do that?
Why don't they still? Like, they could still. I'm always shocked that there's not more games that look as good. I guess adventure games all look beautiful, but they're also like, you know, one screen and they're adventure games. But like, yeah, we need more Resident Evil style games, I think, to make use of this gorgeous ability. And Luigi's Mansion is pretty fucking beautiful too, though. Like, it's not all pre-rendered, but like just the way that the art style is allows for them to put like, you know, everything looks very stylized and cool. But yeah, the Resident Evil remake, I've played like half of it on the HD re-release on Steam. Pretty fucking great. F-Zero GX. Did you ever play any F-Zero games?
I only know F-Zero from Smash Brothers. I haven't played any of them.
Yeah, I played it. Obviously, I knew about it from Smash, and that's why I wanted it when the GameCube version came out. It's fucking great. It's easily... well, okay, I won't say it's easily my favorite racing game, because I really like Diddy Kong Racing and Mario Kart. But, like, F-Zero GX it's sci-fi racing, where you're going at, like, literally 900 miles per hour. It's all about speed and, like, tricky, crazy levels. Like, it's basically the least realistic racing game ever. Like, most racing games try to... like, it's like real cars on a real track, and F-Zero is like, no, this is a fucking wacky sci-fi, high-speed, crazy shit with blasting, electronic music, and it's fucking great. And as Super Bunny Hop did a Hot Pepper Gaming review of it, where he was saying, like, I can't believe this hasn't been remade or re-released or, like, had a sequel. And apparently the statement from what's his fucking name, Shigeru Miyamoto, was that they hadn't made a sequel to it because they didn't have any new ideas for it. And to me, this speaks to sort of a problem with Nintendo's mindset, which is it's almost a beautiful thing, right? They won't make a game unless they have a radically new idea, except that we would like the old ideas to just be updated. Like, I could just use F-Zero GX except in HD graphics and with, like, gorgeous, you know, design work and 30 extra tracks. Like, I don't need it to be a radically new game. Just give me an updated F-Zero, you know?
Yeah, I mean, they did Wind Waker HD, which is arguably the least needing of a graphical overhaul.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you did that. Why wouldn't you do anything else?
Yeah.
Like,
Why
I guess they
not?
did, like, 3DS versions of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. But
Yeah, which
I
means
don't
they're full
know.
of shit. But like, F-Zero is a game that they could easily they could make a new F-Zero game that just has the same mechanics, and it would make perfect sense, and it would be fucking awesome. You know,
It
so
always
do
really
that.
confused me when, like, they announced Link was now a playable guy or downloadable guy in Mario Kart 8 or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, why Link? I mean, I guess Miyamoto. But
Yeah.
F-Zero, Captain Falcon in Mario Kart would have been hilarious, and he would
Yeah.
have his own little car.
Yeah. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. You ever play this game or know about it?
I have not heard of
This
it.
this was a very controversial game when it came out because at the time Final Fantasy was Sony. 7, 8, and 9 had all been on the PS1. 10 was on the PS2. These are the ones that people cared about the most at the time. So like it was seen as a Sony thing, even though it originally was Nintendo. And Crystal Chronicles is a GameCube exclusive game that also is a total departure from the style of Final Fantasy. It's an action RPG. And it's a really cool and interesting game that is hamstrung by the fact that it was made for the most retarded gimmick of all time. The worst thing about the GameCube was the Game Boy Advance GameCube link cable. Because there were some games that used it just fine, right? Like, you play Sonic Advance and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, you can link them together for Chow Garden purposes. You get special chows, cool, whatever, fine. What this game did was that it had, it's a game that if you want to play multiplayer, you have to use the GBA link cables. Why? No reason. Just if you want to play multiplayer, you need the Game Boy Advance plugged in. And here's the other thing. The concept of this game is that the world is covered in miasma. And you basically travel the world as part of this caravan, and you go to each level, and your goal is to basically beat the boss and clear out the miasma from the area. It's really cool. Like, the combat's interesting, the magic system's interesting, it's beautiful to look at, and when the levels are fun and well designed, and the whole idea of you being in this magical caravan, the music is phenomenal. It's great. However, part of the gimmick is that because the world's covered in miasma, you have this thing called the Crystal Chalice, which has this liquid in it that basically creates a barrier around you so the miasma can't get in. And so through the whole game, you have to carry around this chalice so that you're not hit with miasma. And if you put it down, there's a safe zone around you, but to make progress, you then have to pick it back up and keep moving. If you play two-player in this game, one of the players' job is just to carry the chalice. So if you play two-player, someone's entire part of playing the game is just that they are going to carry this fucking chalice around. It is not fun. It is the stupidest idea of how to do two-player co-op I've probably ever seen. And you need the link cables to even do it. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. But otherwise, great game that I really would like to play through all of. I've probably played a fourth of it as a kid because it's long and it gets kind of difficult, and I was a child, so.
Halfway through your explanation, I realized I had heard you talk about that before, and I was just focusing on how miasma sounds like my ass.
There was a Ocarina of Time was remade on the GameCube.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it had. It was released with Master Quest. So, do you know about Master Quest?
I don't.
Basically, they came out with The Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition, which was just it was just so you could play Ocarina of Time on the GameCube, but then there was a second disc that was Master Quest, which is basically a hard version of the game, which is entirely flipped. Master Quest is all right to left flipped. So you play the game, everything that was on the left before is now on the right. And it's also, way harder. Enemies do way more damage and shit. It's, fucking weird. And it's really interesting. So, Yeah, if
Oh,
you've mastered
speaking
Ocarina.
of the discs, we haven't talked about this. They're small, and I really like
Yes.
that. I really like that the GameCube. I have never seen a small CD, and I don't know why they did it. I guess maybe they thought CD like material they could save on if they made their game smaller.
I don't know why the fuck they did it either, and I feel like this was part of what hamstrung them. Like, I don't know. I don't know if the discs could somehow hold more data, because like you would very rarely get like multi-disc games on the GameCube. It was usually just the one disc. But like, why the fuck did they do that? Like, why would they complicate it for everybody else? You know, everyone who's trying to make games for all three consoles, and like suddenly they got to make some other weird game for the Nintendo
Well,
one. You know,
it's weird because it looks exactly the same. Like the games I've seen, they don't look too different, and oftentimes the GameCube one looks better or runs better, and I just don't understand how. Like, maybe all the PlayStation, like, Sony and Xbox CDs had tons of, like, unused space because they were just using generic CDs.
I mean, we could say that, but I don't think there was ever, like, for instance, a long-form RPG on the GameCube. You know, like, one that's, like, 50 hours the way, like, Final Fantasy X was on the PS2, and, you know, maybe that's because they had smaller discs. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck was the deal with the smaller discs. I'm sure somebody's going to explain it in the comments, because everyone knows everything about video games except for me, but...
I think it might be... Well, I don't know, because the console top, like, it's just big enough for a normal-sized CD. I guess maybe they didn't want it to be a cube that was really big, so they tried to make the CD smaller.
That would make sense. That would totally be something they would do. Like, prioritize the smallness. By the way, another thing about the GameCube console itself, which we haven't really touched on much, the console itself, one of the biggest issues with it was the memory card system, because it uses blocks, which were these, like, I guess just a way of communicating megabytes to children who don't know what megabytes are, which, I mean, we would have learned. Like, once I had a PS2, I learned what a megabyte was, you know, because that's how the memory cards work. But on the GameCube, it was blocks, and the standard memory card had 52 blocks. And it was infamous for the fact that this is not a lot of data, and if you played the Madden games, one season would literally take up the whole memory card. Like, just one game file was an entire memory card, and that was like a launch title on the GameCube. So
do people know how big a block was in bytes?
I don't remember. I'm sure that information's out there, but yeah, it was
because
weird...
I remember like this Pokemon Colosseum game I've got says includes memory card 59, which I think means it has more blocks or it's a special memory card because Pokemon Colosseum has a lot of space it needs.
Yeah, there were a lot of games that had to come with memory cards because they took up so much space that, like, they would just eat your memory card. And I think we had, like, 5 or 6 memory cards in my house. And eventually they came out with ones with 250 blocks and stuff like that. But yeah, it was weird. It's a weird system. It's definitely a way for them to, like, just try to, like, child-proof it or something. And then also, the way you got into the Nintendo BIOS screen, because on, like, the PS2... the way to do it was to just not put in a game, and then you turn on the console, and it would let you access the memory card, and then you could, like, put in a game and select between the game and the memory card. On the GameCube, you had to hold down the A button as the console was turning on, and it would spin the cube logo, and that would take you into the memory card menu. Also, if you timed it just right, when you turn on the console, if you press the Z button, it plays a different sound made of weird sound effects. You know about that?
I've never heard of that.
Instead of the done, instead it would go like, and then at the end it would have like children laughing. You're like, ha 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 ha, which is a stock sound effect that's also used at the on the Rareware logo in early N64 games. So yeah, weird shit. That was just bonus to the GameCube. But the reason I brought all this up is that the GameCube was also famous for being nearly indestructible. Like, and it was easy to carry around because it had a handle on the back. They intended for you to
I was gonna
literally
say, I
carry
really
it.
liked it's not really portable at all, but you can hold it if you just like a briefcase, like a kid with he wants to be like a cool dad guy with his briefcase. He picks up his GameCube instead.
Yeah,
It's adorable.
And yeah, it was really hard to break. I remember they used to do a bunch of like tests, you know, like how can they hold up. I remember watching on like XPlay or something on G4. They had like they would like drop it from 30 feet, hit it with like a sledgehammer and stuff like that, and the GameCube would work through all of that. Although my family did go through 2 GameCubes. When we first moved, we moved down to Florida at one point, and our GameCube like overheated or something, and we had to replace it. But the second one we have has worked for well over a decade. So yeah, it's a pretty fucking strong console. Whereas I've gone through like 6 PlayStation 2s and like 5 Xbox 360s.
I think my GameCube's actually broken, and I don't know why and when. Maybe it's just a cable thing, but yeah, it's strange because my PlayStation, I've only had 1 break, and I've had 2 my entire life, and we played the PlayStation 2 so much that I was told, I don't know whether this is true. I guess I should save it really for the PlayStation thing, but my mum used to say, if you play the thing too much, the motor will run out and it'll just stop working. And I don't know whether she knew anything about anything, but I assumed it was true.
I mean, it's kind of true, but like I don't know if it's in the terms that she means. You know, like I don't know if it has a motor, but if you leave it on for too long, it will eventually damage you. Yeah, we were told that from early on too, and so we never leave it on for too long.
But I never played the GameCube, and yet that's really the one that's broken.
Yeah, weird. Mario Golf Toadstool Tour. I was never a big fan of the Mario Golf games. Mario Party 7. There's 4, 5, 6, and 7 were all on the GameCube. The reason I've highlighted 7 is that that's the one that I played on GameCube chats with my friends that convinced me I hate Mario Party. Because there's just too much bullshit in the game. But we apparently... Apparently, we got a lot of shit for ranting about how we hate Mario Party on the first episode of this, on the Wii episode. People were really upset that we were ragging on Mario Party so hard, but I can't.
I mean, I remember liking. I don't know which one it was. It may have been Mario Party 6 or something on the GameCube when I played it at the kids club, and that was one of the big reasons I wanted a GameCube.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Generally, it feels great when you're winning, and it's very difficult to make sure you're winning
when you're losing. Exactly. And you cannot guarantee just by performing well in the minigames that you are going to win. You know?
Yeah, it's the game that lets the little brother win and makes every time. It's just like, I'm supposed to be better than you, and yet here I am,
Maybe all the
loser.
people who love these games are little brothers who got to win, and that's they got something over on their big brother, and that's why they love it so much. Whereas this big brother, any moment that we're not maintaining our dominance is like incredibly fucking infuriating. Here's one of my favorite games of all time, Mario Power Tennis. Mario Power Tennis is a masterpiece. Because you already had Mario Tennis on the N64, which is fine. Mario Power Tennis just had, updated graphics, more game modes, more tactics in the controls and shit like that. But this game is the perfect combination of so simplistic that anyone could pick it up and play at any time. Like, mostly it's a game about you get where the ball is and you press A. Or you press A and R at the same time to do, like, a trick shot or something. Like, there's some tactics involved, but it's very easy to understand. And it doesn't change that much. But it's just engaging enough that it still keeps your attention. And I really became a fan of this game because of just playing it while talking. Like, me and Victor would sit up all night and like play Mario Power Tennis and have a conversation, and that was one of the first games we did on GameCube chats. It was kind of like what was the concept of that show, which if anybody doesn't know, GameCube chats is a show I'm just realizing that's highly relevant to this because it's literally about the GameCube. My first ever Let's Play show that I did when I first started as a YouTuber was me and my friends would play exclusively GameCube games. And we recorded it by putting a camera in front of the TV and recording it that way. But the first game we did was Mario Power Tennis because I saw it as a game where you have conversations and play. And we later did it again on Digibros, though that time it was fucking total chaos because there was too many people in the room. But yeah, it's a game you can play with up to 4 players and have a great time. I really love it. They recently finally made a sequel for the Wii U, but it was more expensive than I wanted to pay for it. Because the way I see it, why pay $60 for Mario Power Tennis on the Wii U when I still have the GameCube game? So yeah, but yeah, I love that game. Metal Gear Solid The Twin Snakes was a remake of Metal Gear Solid 1. It is the only way I've actually played Metal Gear Solid 1. And I want to say like a third of the way through it. Pretty cool. For some reason, I know a lot of people don't like the GameCube version because they changed the cutscenes and people don't like the new versions. I'm reading that according to Wikipedia, the new cutscenes were written and directed by Ryuhei Kitamura, who most of our audience probably never heard of, but he's a Japanese director who was a big influence on me because he directed the movie Versus, and he made me want to become a director when I was younger. He also did Godzilla Final Wars and a bunch of other shit. Did not know that. That's fascinating, but I'm keeping that detail to myself. Hippo, did you ever play any of this shit? Do you know what I'm fucking talking about?
Not the Metal Gear Solid stuff. I did watch your GameCube chats on Mario Power Tennis. I don't know how many of those you did, but I did watch one of them.
I think it was just 2 episodes or something like that.
Yeah, maybe so I kind of get it. There's a lot of Mario sports games. I think the one I've actually played the most was a DS game, Mario Basketball with Final Fantasy characters in it.
Mario Strikers.
Mario 1, 2, 3 Hoops or something strange like that.
Okay, yeah, that one. Strikers was a soccer game.
Yeah.
There was Final Fantasy characters in that?
I think so. There was like the white mage and the blue mage or whatever it was, the cleric.
Was it like developed by Square Enix or something? Like,
I don't know. I'm gonna look it up.
It's always interesting when you get like Nintendo games that are made by another studio and then they'll throw in like references to their shit, and you're always like, why is this character in here? Oh, Capcom made this game, you know, like because Capcom made some of the best Zelda games, like Minish Cap and Oracle of Ages and Seasons. Metroid Prime was a big game on the fucking GameCube that was the most beautiful game I'd ever seen, and also like the hardest game in the fucking world. It was the first Metroid game I played other than Fusion. Like I got them both at the same time. They came out on the same day, I think, or close to each other. I never got very far in Prime because it was too hard for me and I would get lost. My cousin Boyd played through most of it, and I watched him play it, but he never ended up beating it. And I still have never beaten Metroid Prime. I've tried to play it like multiple times over the years, but it's really, the hard part about it is that it makes you take a long time between save points, and there's parts where you'll be playing for like half a fucking hour with no save, and it's really fucking hard. So I've still never beaten it because I get frustrated if I die and lose that much progress. But I distinctly remember an episode of like X-Play, I think, on G4, where they did the top 10 best looking games of all time, which this was in 2005, I want to say, or late 2004 maybe. And Metroid Prime was their number 1. And I had a lot of pride in that because the number 2 was Halo, and the Halo 2 was not out yet. So it was Metroid Prime, Halo, and then I want to say like Half-Life or something. Like, I don't think Half-Life 2 was out yet either. But at the time, it was considered the most beautiful game ever made. And the fact that it was on the GameCube was a huge point of pride to me that would be the case, you know?
Yeah, Metroid Prime was the... by the way, the Mario Hoops, it was like Final Fantasy, like White Mage, Black Mage, and Ninja, and a Moogle, and the cactus thing. And then Waluigi, Donkey Kong, and Mario's characters as well. Very strange. But Metroid Prime was the last game that I have to talk about. But it's weird. I found this on my shelf, I didn't remember that I had it. I always thought I only had the Wii one.
Oh.
So I don't think I've really played Metroid Prime 1 that much. I tried playing it on a stream a while ago, but I couldn't get very far. Mostly because I wasn't sure whether I wanted to really get into it because I had work that I was trying to do about other things. But it looked fun. I think the Wii version is better to control. Just feels more correct using the controller to look at things and shoot on the screen.
Yeah.
But yeah. I really should play Metroid Prime. I should do a fucking Metroid month at some point. That'll be the next thing.
That would be pretty dope. The Prime games are hard as shit though, so it will be it will take you some time to get through those.
Metroid year then.
Here's another while we're on the subject of games that were a point of pride that they were on the GameCube, Resident Evil 4. That game when it came out was like widely considered like possibly the greatest game of all time. Like, it was so critically beloved. It was on all the Game of the Year lists. It was like, just because it was this, it's the first of the over-the-shoulder shooter games, which was revolutionary at the time it came out as a control scheme. Like, it was just a third-person shooter that had really changed the way that we think about that type of game. It's super fun. It's huge. It takes like 20 hours to beat that game, and there's tons of secret collectible shit. It's just such a well-realized game. And yeah, the mechanics are really interesting and deep. I didn't end up playing it until years later, but when I finally did, I was like, yeah, this game's fucking awesome. Like, I played it all the way to completion, and I really liked it. And now I've got it on Steam as well. By the way, it's on every fucking console now. Like, it was such a point of pride that it was on the GameCube for such a short time. Then it was on the PS2, and the PS2 version was better because it had extra shit that they'd added onto the game. Then it was on the Wii, and now it had motion controls, which some people liked even more. Then it was also on the PS3, and you could use the Motion Plus. And now you can buy Resident Evil 4 in a PlayStation 4 case at the store. You can go to the PS4 section and literally purchase Resident Evils 4, 5, 6, and 7 as PS4 games at like $30 price points. Even though the game is like $1.
What is it? What is it with Resident Evil and being remade and staying relevant? Like, Resident Evil 1's been remade like 18 times.
Because it makes a lot of money, and Capcom will run it into the fucking ground. Because it's the only thing they have left. It's the only IP they still care about, you know?
Didn't they have Okami? They could have done that over and over again. I would have loved that.
Well, Okami was Clover Studios, and they all left to become Platinum Games. So the people who actually made Okami aren't there anymore. And they made Okami Den for the DS, and nobody liked it. So yeah, they can't run Okami into the ground. They can't run Mega Man because everyone who wanted to be there left. Did I say Konami? I meant Capcom. I don't know why. I feel like I said the word Konami. No, I said Okami. Never mind. No, but yeah, Capcom, they ruined all their IPs except for Resident Evil. So it's the only one that's still like making them money. So they're just gonna fucking shove it down our throats. God, I'm just gonna like gauntlet through a bunch of games that I don't have that much to say about. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. I grew up with Mortal Kombat, and this was the first 3D Mortal Kombat game. I played a lot of it. It had the song "You Can't Kill Me, I'm Immortal" by the band Odama as this big tie-in song thing, and I fucking loved it. We've got Pokemon Channel, the game where you literally sit with Pikachu and watch TV. That's the game. You go to different channels, and you have to, like, unlock channels by watching channels. So you sit around with Pikachu and watch TV to unlock new channels. It's fucking stupid. But I think this game ended up being the basis for the Wii. Like, the Wii's whole the whole UI of the Wii and the idea that it is channels is, like, exactly what Pokemon Channel was. So, yeah, somehow it ended up being the Wii interface. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. This is a very well-regarded game that was on all the consoles. I played it on GameCube. Never got that far, because at some point in the game, I saved with low health, and I literally fucked myself. Like, I couldn't progress, because I was in a difficult combat encounter, and I didn't have enough health to do it.
Could you I thought like after every combat encounter you could save, and then there would be like water nearby where you could drink to restore your health.
I had saved some. I don't know exactly how I did it because I'd saved like at a water fountain or something, but I don't know, for whatever reason I couldn't heal before this battle, and I was like stuck in a loop where I'd have to play it with low health, and I couldn't do it. It wasn't good enough. So yeah, I don't know. But I got stuck and I couldn't beat it, and I just went fuck it. It was probably like 3 or 4 hours into the game. You ever play Prince of Persia? What console did you play it on?
I played it on PS2 and I love it. It's one of my big favorites. Yeah. I played it recently for a review.
I'll let you go into detail on that in the PS2 episode, since we're already long as shit. Rampage Total Destruction. There were 2 Rampage games on the N64, one on the GameCube. I think that was the end of Rampage. I don't think it had any after that. Because it's not that good. I got high and recorded a 1-minute podcast about Rampage and why it did not become a franchise, and I've thought about redoing that as an actual video. But yeah, I'll talk about that at a different time. Shadow the Hedgehog was on the GameCube. I think we had it on the PS2 though. I know you had it on the PS2. So we'll address that on the PS2 episode. Oh god, Sonic Mega Collection, which was a collection of all the old Sonic games that was on the GameCube. It was 7 of the greatest hits of Sonic. What I remember this for is not for playing the actual Sonic games, but because it had the Sonic CD intro on it, which is the Sonic Boom, Sonic Boom, Sonic. Have you ever seen that? It's
no, I don't think I have.
It's like,
oh no, wait, is that the really nicely animated one?
Yes, it's a beautiful animation of Sonic just like running through this world, and it's set to this great song. And me and my brothers would literally watch it over and over again. Like, we would put this game into the GameCube just to watch this clip because it's so fucking good. Sonic Heroes, I don't remember playing at all. I think we rented it once and didn't understand it. Same with Sonic Riders, which is the Sonic surfing racing game that was not good. Starfox Adventures, the shittiest adventure game ever, where they made a Starfox adventure game which nobody wanted, and it's not even good. It's really frustrating and obnoxious to play, and full of terrible cutscenes, and the greatest line in video game history: "Nobody ever brings me gifts anymore!" Go watch my Let's Play on it on Digibros, or of course the Starfox Temperatures video from back when JonTron was good.
Oh yeah. I was wondering about that line.
Yeah,
I was trying to think where I actually have heard it.
It was probably from my Let's Play, because I don't think he brings it up in his video. Maybe he does. I don't remember. Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader was one of the big launch titles for the console, because it was like, oh my god, it's a space shooter where there's like lots of shit you can do. Oh my god, I completely forgot there was a Robotech game for the GameCube as well. Because I talked about the GBA game, which I played extensively, but the GameCube one was just too hard. But it was another space shooter similar to Rogue Squadron 2, where, you know, you just fly around in planes and shoot at spaceships and shit. It was pretty good, but it was also really fucking hard. Super Monkey Ball. You ever play any Monkey Ball?
No, I don't think so. I had seen it around. Yeah,
the idea of this game is that you tilt the stage to roll this monkey in a ball around the stage. And it's I don't know if it was supposed to be hard, but I thought it was too hard. Like, I didn't get it. I couldn't figure out, like, I don't know, maybe because I'm impatient, it just didn't, you know, couldn't fucking make it work. But I really hated Super Monkey Ball as a kid. Timesplitters 2 was on all the consoles. I played it on GameCube, but only briefly. Tony Hawk's Underground, which is where the point where I lost interest in Tony Hawk, because it got like too story driven and weird. Beautiful Joe, which was another game from Clover Studio, who were part of, again, Capcom at the time. Whom they made Okami, they made God Hand back then, they made Beautiful Joe, and then eventually they left and became Platinum. But Beautiful Joe is probably the most similar to their Platinum games. It's a side-scrolling beat-em-up game that's really fucking hard and known for its like crazy combos and shit like that. And it was part of the Capcom 5, which was supposed to be 5 Capcom games that were GameCube exclusive, of which there was Beautiful Joe, Resident Evil 4. Actually, I don't remember if that was supposed to be part of the Capcom 5, but it ended up being a part of it. Yeah, okay, Resident Evil 4 was one of them. Killer 7 was one of them, but that later became multi-platform. PN03, which was a third-person shooter that nobody cared about, and then I think the 5th game never got made. But, yeah, Beautiful Joe's, it's pretty cool. They made, like, 2 or 3 games on the GameCube, and we liked the game a lot, but it was too fucking hard, so we never beat it. 'Cause
The thing that's always annoyed me about Beautiful Joe is that I always hear that it's great, but I just don't like the name so much.
yeah, it's a game about transforming superheroes. So if you like that, then, you know, it's all themed around, like, movies and shit, but, like, the main character is, like, an American guy who's big into transforming heroes, and he says, "Henshin a go-go, baby," because, you know, Henshin means transform, and that's usually what transforming heroes say, but he says, "Henshin a go-go, baby." So that's that. Alright, I've whittled it down to where I finally got to, like, the most important games that I have to talk about. One of which is just Wario World, which I played recently because of a Let's Play. I did the whole thing on my Digi in May series. Pretty cool game. Wario deserves to come back. Like, Wario games have always been generally really good, and it's surprising that they haven't kept coming out, because I guess they were never that popular, except for the WarioWare games. But, yeah, Wario World's pretty cool. I did a whole review of it on a patron exclusive podcast, so if you're a patron, you know, check that out. And then I have the Soul Calibur 2 fighting game I was way into, specifically because Link was in it. Did you ever play Soul Calibur at all?
No, but I do remember having this PlayStation 2 magazine where the lady from Soul Calibur with the gigantic titties is right there, and I would look at that a lot.
Yeah.
She's like the rendered where you can see her nipples very clearly through that very tight red, like what the fuck? That's great.
Yeah, that's tacky.
But I never bought the game.
Soul Calibur 2, the biggest selling point was it was on all 3 consoles. However, what was special about it was that they each had a different exclusive character. So if you bought the PS2 version, it came with Kazuma from Tekken, who I didn't give a fuck about at all. And then if you bought the Xbox version, it had some shitty character designed by Todd McFarlane, because nothing was Xbox exclusive yet at the time, so it was brand new. But then if you had the GameCube version, you had Link, who obviously is a huge selling point draw. So I bought the game because it had Link. I loved the game. Link did not even end up being my main, but yeah, it's a really cool 3D fighting game. Soul Calibur is generally pretty great. But I bought it because it had Link. Starfox Assault, which is the actual Star Fox game that's for the GameCube, which got a lot of flack at the time because it's not all space fighting. It's got, like, there's some levels where you're in a tank, some levels where you're just running around on foot, and some levels where you're in a starfighter. And, you know, the game was kind of contentious for that reason. But I watched, more recently, my friend Brandon Tolentino play through Star Fox Assault. In fact, we did a Digibros of it, or a Digi and Friends, because he was a huge Star Fox fan. That game is fucking beautiful. Like, the whole thing is 60 frames per second with, like, really awesome, like, arcade-style, like, graphics. Like, everything's fast-paced, and there's big explosions everywhere, and it's all colorful and crazy. And it's just got that experience that you get in the arcade of, like, flashing lights and loud noises, and you're like, ah, everything's cool, everything's awesome. You gotta play it on a CRT. You can't play it on fucking HD TV because it doesn't have the effect. But, like, yeah, it's a really cool, cool fucking game. Sonic Adventure. There was Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. It was one of the early games for the GameCube. Most important game to me and my brother Victor growing up. We played the shit out of this. Victor was obsessed with it. It had the deepest story I'd ever seen. Shadow the Hedgehog fucking dies at the end of the game. And then he comes back in his own sequel, which made no fucking sense. And it had the Chow Garden, which we spent endless hours raising chows, because it was just it's like this child nurturing simulator game that is incredibly detailed in spite of being just a side thing. And it's way better than the actual game, because Sonic Adventure 2 is a pile of garbage. As is Sonic Adventure 1, which was remade on the GameCube as Sonic Adventure DX. Do you have any other games you want to talk about before I get into my last one, Hippo? Anything else to say, or should I just keep going?
Well, I don't have any other games to talk about. I was thinking about talking about the controller a bit, just because I think it's really well designed, especially like
the controller's great.
The the L and R clickies are way better than anything else.
Yeah.
Like they've never felt as satisfying as those. Even though sometimes they jam, it's just such a nice curvy, like,
and they're multi-weighted,
yes.
where it's like you can press down a little bit or press down all the way, and it means two different things, you know?
Yeah.
You've got, which is incidentally, I think the biggest reason that GameCube games haven't been emulatable on the later consoles. Like, the Wii U doesn't have that, and there's certain games that need that, and so, there's some games that just don't quite work right. Or if you try to play, I can't remember what game it was. There was some GameCube game that I tried to play on an emulator using a different controller, and like literally that made it not work. But yeah, it's a great design. It's very comfortable. It's easy to understand. Like, they obviously designed it so that people who don't know what video games are could get into it, because if you ask like my dad why he can't get into modern video games, it's because there's too many buttons. He can't, like, coordinate the buttons. So on the GameCube, they made the big important button the size of a planet so that you could not possibly mistake that this is the important button, you know?
Yeah.
And it's pretty comfortable. I mean, there's a reason that Smash 4, when Smash 4 came out, they released a whole thing that let you play it with GameCube controllers, because it's like, that's what we want, you know? Yeah, great controller. Yeah. Last game I have to talk about is Phantasy Star Online, which is actually a Dreamcast game, but I don't think we're going to be doing a Dreamcast podcast because neither of us had one when it was relevant. And a lot of the best Dreamcast games were remade for the GameCube, including Phantasy Star Online Episodes 1 and 2, which was originally Phantasy Star Online is a MMORPG for the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast was like the first console that had, that could be played online. And the GameCube did not have that fun. I mean, I think you could play GameCube online, but I never understood how. Like, I had no idea how to make that possible, if that is the case. I couldn't figure it out on the PS1 either. Or PS2, I mean. But I know you could do it on PS2. I think you just had to plug a fucking cable into it. I think you just had to, like, straight up plug your Ethernet cable in, but I didn't know that. In any case, Phantasy Star Online on the GameCube also had split-screen multiplayer. And me and my brothers and our friends would play hours upon hours upon hours of split-screen multiplayer Phantasy Star Online, which is just grinding. Because you can play a single-player campaign that has, like, quests and shit, but in the multiplayer, it's just you go in and you fight monsters. Like, you just play through a level, fight all the monsters, beat the boss. And then if you need to level up more, you play through the level again, fight all the monsters, beat the boss. It's just grinding. But it was so much fucking fun, because the gameplay loop is so simple and perfect, and you can get different weapons, and you play as different character types, and, you play as a unit. And it's just a great multiplayer game, and that is the couch multiplayer I've played by far the most of in my life, is Phantasy Star Online. Then there was Episode 3 for the GameCube, which is a single-player card-battling RPG, which is fucking totally different and had nothing to do with the appeal of the game. And also the cutscenes were all in, like, comic book format. It was fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds gross.
Yeah, it was pretty weird and fucked up. But yeah, that's the last GameCube game I had to talk about. Big console for me. Sorry I made this. This ran long and I did all the talking because I can't help it. Big console. I will never have this much to say about another console. So, which one should we do next? What's a console that you can go on about all day? Because
well, the obvious one is the PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
So we could do that one.
Is there?
I'm trying to remember whether we have done the PlayStation 1 yet.
Yeah, we already did
we
PS1. That was the last episode.
We did. Okay, we did PS1, PS3. Yeah, let's do the PS2.
All right, we're gonna get into the PS2. Hippo's gonna have a lot to say. I've played countless PS2 games as well, so that podcast is gonna go for 3 fucking hours. But see you then.
All right.